When we are bewildered, we do not distinguish what is religious and what is not religious. At that time, there is need of Guru. That is the Vedic instruction. Tadvijnanatham sa gurumeva vigache. Material world means in every state there is danger. So, therefore we should take guide from Guru, from the spiritual master, how to make progress. The injunction of the Vedas that if you want real knowledge, you must go to Guru. Now there are so many gurus. Where shall I go? You shall go to a Guru. Samitpani Sutryam Brahmanishtam. You shall go to a Guru who is Brahmanishtam, a great devotee. He is good. One who has full knowledge in Brahma. Athato Brahmati.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshataya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. A very warm welcome to all of you on day 7 of Srila Prabhupada LILA, Tompkins Square Park. So it is told in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brahmanda Pramite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade by Bhakti Lata Beach. Spiritual life is compared to development of a creeper. Just like a creeper grows, as we discussed in previous session also, gardener has to take proper care protection to protect it from some unwanted animal, some sudden attack of winds, outburst of rains, or some weeds which can choke the growth of the creeper. However, the most important process is to get the seed of the plant. Without getting the seed, there is no question of creeper coming out. What to speak of discussing other measures of giving protection and whatever else is needed. So how do we get the seed of the creeper of devotional service? So this thing is very, very rare. So spiritual life never happens by chance. By chance a person became perfect. No. Spiritual life has to be developed. Just like the gross body grows, in a similar fashion, one has to make his consciousness grow on the spiritual platform. For physical training, you need a coach. Coach tells you you should eat this, you should not eat this, and then your body becomes strong. Without coach, if you try to undergo physical training, you can do harm to yourself. Then what to speak of spirit, which we cannot even see? So spiritual master's guidance is very, very important. So it is told the seed of this creeper of spiritual life devotional service is given by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. When Krishna sees somebody is inquisitive, serious to understand spiritual life, Krishna sitting in the heart as Paramatma guides such a person to a bona fide spiritual master or sends a spiritual master to him. This arrangement is done by Krishna. And then a person has to please the spiritual master. And then spiritual master gives him the seed of devotional service. So this devotional creeper is spiritual, its seed is also completely spiritual. It descends down in this Guru Shishya Parampara, the spiritual lineage. And then that seed of devotional service is sown in the heart and very nicely, very carefully cultivated. And then this creeper grows and reaches the spiritual sky, takes shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, and then finally produces fruits. And those fruits are called love of Godhead. Then a devotee relishes. So till the creeper grows, it has to be protected, it reaches, takes shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, and then produces fruits. We have to wait till that time. So this process of receiving the seed is called Diksha or initiation. This is called spiritual birth. And this is what every human being is supposed to take, second birth or spiritual birth, which happens by the mercy of spiritual master. So how Srila Prabhupada, he planted the seed of devotional service in a land which was completely devoid of any kind of devotional or spiritual understanding whatsoever. The land which was completely saturated with materialism. For the first time, bhakti was taken to that land. So how Srila Prabhupada very carefully planted the seed of bhakti in many, many hearts, and how eventually the Hare Krishna got formally inaugurated. These things we'll be understanding today. So we discussed yesterday how Srila Prabhupada was very carefully guiding his disciples. He got a matchless gift shop, and the disciples were advancing because they started chanting Hare Krishna regularly and they started serving Srila Prabhupada by divine inspiration. And in this way, Srila Prabhupada became very hopeful. Prabhupada taught them even the nitty-gritties of cooking and various other things that is supposed to be done. And the devotee who was one of the most serious, who was assisting Srila Prabhupada in cooking, his name was Keith. So one day, Keith was cooking lunch in the kitchen as usual. But today Swamiji was standing by the kitchen stove, watching his pupil. Keith paused and looked up from his cooking. He says, "Swamiji, could I become your disciple?" "Yes," Swamiji replied. "Why not? Your name will be Krishna Das." The simple exchange was the first request for discipleship and Swamiji's first granting of initiation. But there was more to it than that. Swamiji announced that he would soon hold an initiation. Now this was a very new term for them. He asked, what is initiation? Swamiji told, "I will tell you soon." First of all, they were told to arrange beads. He told, you have to take some vows on initiation. And one of the most important vows is you have to chant on beads. So please arrange the beads. Now we are so fortunate. We can just go any place in India, you find a set of beads. not just in the Hare Krishna temples, but everywhere. People have practice of chanting or beads across the religion. Hindus chant, Muslims chant, Christians chant, Sikhs chant, Buddhists chant. So chanting on beads is very regular practice. But in West, you don't find beads. I mean, for religious purposes, but they use beads for decorative purposes, some loose beads. So they brought some loose beads, and Swamiji told them how to string it. They should be 108 in count, and he told how in India people would have even up to 1,000 beads, and they would chant many times over on those set of 1,000 beads. But you make 108. Why 108? 108 is a special number. The close associates of Krishna, the topmost devotees, gopis, they are 108 in number. Krishna has unlimited gopis, but the prime gopis are 108. And so is the count of the number of Upanishads. Upanishads mark the beginning of spiritual life, which are called Shruti Shastras. They are also 108 in number. So when we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, every chanting on every bead, it reveals the knowledge of one Upanishad. So if a person is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra very nicely, all the knowledge of Upanishads is revealed automatically. But because we cannot do such pure chanting, we are also, it is mandatory to read also side by side. Otherwise, if somebody can chant purely the holy name of Krishna, all the knowledge is automatically revealed. The initiates would be taking vows, he said, and one vow would be to chant a prescribed number of rounds on the beads a day. About a dozen of Swamiji's boys were eligible, but there was no strict system for their selection. If they wanted to, they could do it. So now there is a very strict procedure for initiation. Sometimes you may have to write up to 5 levels of examination and interviews you have to face. And so many other rules and regulations we have to practice for months, and then one becomes qualified for initiation. And Srila Prabhupada also gradually raised the bar for initiations, but this was the first time, the first generation of Hare Krishna devotees. So Prabhupada was lenient. And Prabhupada, because he was directly giving them association, all mercy was there, Prabhupada does not matter. Anybody who wants to take, he can take. Steve recollects, although I was already doing whatever Swamiji recommended, I sensed that initiation was a heavy commitment. And with my last strong impulses to remain completely independent, I hesitated to take initiation. So he was already following Swamiji, but initiation means a commitment. Boy and girl could be going on well together, but marriage is a commitment. So people hesitate. We want to remain independent. That is actually a disease which we have in this material world. So we have to understand nobody is completely independent. Only Krishna is absolutely independent. Now we are living outside as free citizens. Because we agree to follow certain basic rules and regulations set by the government. If you try to breach those basic laws, then whatever independence we have will be highly curtailed, and we will be limited in 4 walls of the prison house. Unfortunately, people do not understand God has also similarly set up laws in the nature, because there are so many living entities here who want to live happily. So if we break those laws, we would suffer. But this training, due to misfortune, has been taken away when the Gurukul system got abolished. Now people do not know the purpose of creation, the laws of nature, and thus they think, let me do whatever I want, whenever I want. Complete free person, he tells, actually nobody is free, but they want to behave as a completely freed man, completely independent. And then they tell, this is cool, you do whatever you want, eat whenever you want. And of course, after some time, the body starts responding, various diseases crop up in the body, and so much stress, anxiety, a person cannot be happy unless he very strictly follows the laws of nature. However, people do not want to lose their independence, and Steve also was worried. If I take initiation, it's a serious commitment, then I have to follow. There is no turning back. So we have to understand actually this giving up of independence to Krishna is the beginning of real independence. Just like if a person agrees to give up whatever whimsical independence he has to the government, he submits to the government, then he's so free to enjoy the facilities of that country and all the things that the government has to offer. So that is why, without any hesitation, it is very important one should surrender completely to a guru. Of course, the scriptures mention for minimum 1 year, you hear the guru very nicely. So just like how do you take admission into a coaching institute? You go, you understand, oh, this thing is very nice. He's explaining or she is explaining very nicely. So you see this guru is genuine or not as per the scriptures. For 1 year continuously hear, but finally submission is required. Now in my life, I am completely dependent on my spiritual master. I cannot violate the laws. Whatever it is, I should do at every step of my life. Just like a surgeon, a person signs an agreement and surgeon is allowed to cut open his heart, his body. He may die also, he agrees, okay, if you want to kill, I agree. He signs the papers. Because unless he completely submits to the surgeon, he cannot be cured. So when physical disease cannot be cured, for spiritual disease, greater surrender is required. Surrender of not just body, but of mind, intelligence, false ego, and the soul. So such complete shelter is supposed to be taken of spiritual master. And this is called Diksha, initiation. Then spiritual life begins when a person surrenders to Guru. So Steve was hesitant that, okay, I can follow what he's telling, but commitment is something serious. Swamiji's friends saw the initiation in different ways. Some saw it as very serious, and some took it to be like a party or happening. While stringing their beads in the courtyard, Wally and Howard talked a few days before the ceremony. Wally, it's just a formality. You accept Swamiji as your spiritual master. Howard, what does that entail? Wally, nobody is very sure. In India, it's a standard practice. Don't you think you want to take him as a spiritual master? Howard says, I don't know. He would seem to be a good spiritual master, whatever that is. I mean, I like him and his teachings a lot. So I guess in a way he's already my spiritual master. I just don't understand how it would change the situation. Wally, neither do I. I guess it doesn't. It's just a formality. So they were not understanding what he's telling, we are following. So how will it change the situation? So they thought maybe it's just a formality. On September 8, it was Janmashtami, the appearance day of Lord Krishna. 1 year before, Bhaktivedanta Swami had observed Krishna's birthday at sea aboard the Jalduta. If you have heard the previous sessions, how when Prabhupada started, he celebrated just 1 year ago Janmashtami aboard the ship Jalduta. And he had distributed prasadam, he had spoken of Krishna consciousness, and after 1 year, he had about a dozen of people who were willing to become his first spiritual children. Now, exactly after 1 year, he had a small group of Hare Krishna chanters. He would gather them all together, have them observe a day of chanting, reading scriptures, fasting, and feasting. And the next day would be initiation. This is how we celebrate festivals. Now it is mere formality. Sometimes government gives holidays on some day, on some of the festivals. Otherwise, usually we get it on national holidays, Republic Day, Independence Day. But why holiday is given? What are we supposed to do on that day? People do not know. So this is how the festival is celebrated. So entire day person should chant, just like there is any festive occasion. You sing, you dance, you play music. Similar festivity should be done for Krishna. So whenever any festival comes, in this way we can do it. Even if in your office it is not off, please try to take off. And then we should fast on that day, so that every moment can be saved for celebration. You can chant as much as possible, because if you have to cook, it takes time. And then you have to eat, it takes time. And then you feel sleepy, lazy also after eating. So it consumes many hours of the day. And further, spiritual life has a prerequisite of austerity. Those who are not austere or not devoted, Krishna tells to Arjuna, the science of Bhagavad Gita should not be spoken to them, because they won't be able to understand. So understanding I am not the body, from here spiritual life begins. So bodily needs have to be curtailed, tapasya is required. This is also why we fast, to save time and to come out of bodily concept. So fasting, entire day we are supposed to fast in the festival, sometimes entire day like Janmashtami, sometimes till evening, dusk time, sometimes only till afternoon, like Radhashtami and other appearance day of Acharyas, but fasting is required. And along with fasting, there should be chanting, which is the purpose. That is why we are saving time. That is why we are trying to do tapasya. When we fast, chanting becomes much more effective. That is why we fast on Ekadashis also. Chanting becomes very, very effective. So we have to fast and then we have to chant as much as possible throughout the day. We can chant on beats or we can do kirtan. We can chant with musical instruments and sing it. These are the two ways of chanting the names of Krishna. And then we can hear the scriptures. Krishna book is there, Srimad Bhagavatam is there. So we can just read the wonderful appearance pastimes of Krishna and various other pastimes. So in this way, entire day should be filled up with activities. Decorating Krishna, offering various food items for Krishna, cooking for Krishna. We don't eat, but for Krishna. And chanting for Krishna, decorating the entire place for Krishna, hearing about Krishna, either Krishna's name or Krishna's story, philosophy, pastimes. In this way, one is supposed to spend entire day. And then there is feasting after that. Chanting, reading scriptures, fasting and feasting. In this way, Prabhupada made them observe Janmashtami. He was trying to make them observe Janmashtami. And the next day would be initiation. Next day, Srila Prabhupada's appearance day, which we also will celebrate as Vyas Puja Day. And some people this year also will take initiation. At 6 o'clock, Swamiji came down and was about to give his morning class as usual, when one of the boys asked if he would read from his own manuscript. Swamiji was so long reading from Dr. Radhakrishna's Bhagavad Gita, which was an impersonalist's version. So Prabhupada told translations are okay, 90% of it. But what is the difficulty? The purports are completely misleading. For example, Krishna mentions detachment is very much important. How senses can be controlled? By abhyas and vairagya, Krishna mentions, by detachment. So translation is alright. You can control the senses by practice of yoga and by practicing detachment. And then in purport they would explain. So initially you can chant Krishna's name, you can meditate on deity of Krishna in the temple, but then you have to detach yourself even from Krishna. So this brings disaster in the life of a seeker. So that is why one should be very cautious. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself told, Mayavadi bhashya shunile hoy sarvanash. If you hear the version of impersonalist, it is sarvanash. If a person detaches himself from Krishna also, that is the biggest mistake a person can do in unlimited any of his lifetimes. So thus Prabhupada would read the texts and then would explain the actual parampara version, what Krishna intended to explain. He explained to Brahma, Lord Shiva, Arjuna, and the same meaning without any change Prabhupada was conveying. But then disciples were being inspired from within the heart to get to genuine understanding. So he requested Swamiji, can you please read from your manuscript? That time Bhagavad Gita was not there in the 66. But Prabhupada was preparing, writing, and manuscript was there. So Swamiji was very glad to have this request from disciple. So thus when we advance in spiritual life, first of all, we do not even know what to ask. When sometimes people meet devotees, they tell, Swamiji, can you please read hands? Please tell us what is there in our future. They don't know what to ask. So we have a process by which birth and death and disease can be stopped for good. All the problems can be solved. What is there in your palm? Everybody knows death is certain. Suppose you are going to die. Somebody tells you, I am going to kill you anytime soon in future. And before that, maybe you will get diseased also and old also. So you'll be very, very worried. You would like to have solution of this problem. He is told he will kill me. Please tell me, how can I save myself? But we have taken it for granted. Everybody is dying. I also will die. No, Vedas tell no, you can stop it. So when we advance in spiritual life, first, Krishna, spiritual master, they inspire to ask the right questions and then they give right answers also. So thus Prabhupada was very glad that Krishna was inspiring them to ask the right questions first. And Prabhupada was always willing to give the right answers. For observing Janmashtami, there were special rules. There should be no eating, and the day was to be spent chanting, reading, and discussing Krishna consciousness. If anyone became too weak, he said, there was fruit in the kitchen, but better that they fast until the feast at midnight, just like the devotees in India. He said that in India, millions of people, Hindus, Muslims, or whatever, observe the birthday of Lord Krishna And in every temple there were festivities and celebrations of the pastimes of Krishna. And now, he said at length, I will tell you what is meant by initiation. So Prabhupada was very, very firm against the impersonal philosophy. So a great havoc has been played, as we discussed before. Bhaktisdan Maharaj in Koshi village, he got very much pleased when he understood this boy Abhay has captured my mind, the essence of my preaching. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. So absolute truth is not energy, he is sentient, he is conscious living being. You have proved that. He is conscious entity, a person just like you and me. An impersonal calamity, a calamity in spiritual life, where a person thinks God is simply an energy. There is no expectation of talking with God, meeting with God, and without desire, nothing will fructify. So this is a calamity in one's life. A person will never develop desire to meet God. So this impersonal calamity was solved by Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. So impersonalist philosophy says it's only an energy which takes various forms. So you are also God because God is simply an energy. You are God, I am God, everybody is God. Back and these people are telling God is simply an energy. He is not a person. So all such gurus who are proponents of impersonalism, they tell I am God. I am also incarnation. And you are also that, but just that you don't realize, I have realized I am the same Krishna who appeared 5,000 years ago. And eventually most of these people end up doing Ras Leela, dancing with girls. And the spiritual affair is taken as some mundane, uh, gross, immoral activity. So Prabhupada was highly critical. Prabhupada told anybody who tells I am God, he is dog. Because when God has to come, God is not so cheap. Hundreds of founders of spiritual institutions are there and everybody is telling that I am God. And Westerners were very used to hearing this thing. So when Prabhupada first time he spoke and reporters were surprised, this Swami first time he is telling that I am not God, I am servant of God. No, please stop it. Not servant. I am trying to become servant of God. So they were amazed. Oh, this person is not claiming he is God, what so many Swamis from India had claimed so far. So Prabhupada was dead against. As soon as he hears anybody telling that I am God, he would become very upset. But there, on this lecture, it was very surprising what Prabhupada explained. Prabhupada had told, Swamiji had told, I would explain about initiation. And now he said at length, I will tell you what is meant by initiation. Initiation means that the spiritual master accepts the student and agrees to take charge. And the student accepts the spiritual master and agrees to worship him as God. He paused. No one spoke. Any questions? As there were none, he got up and walked out. The devotees were stunned. What had they just heard him say? For weeks he had stressed that when anyone claims to be God, he should be considered a dog. My mind's just been blown, said Wally. Everyone's mind is blown, said Howard. Swamiji just dropped a bomb. They thought of Keith. He was wise. Consult Keith. But Keith was in the hospital. Talking among themselves, they became more and more confused. Swamiji's remark had confounded their judgment. So Swamiji has so far been telling anybody who tells that I am God, he should be considered dog. And here he is telling initiation means spiritual master should be worshipped as God. Now he is going against his philosophy. Keith listened to the whole story. He heard how Swamiji had told them to fast and how he had read from his manuscript and how he had said he would explain initiation and how everybody had leaned forward all ears and Swamiji had dropped a bomb. The student accepts the spiritual master and agrees to worship him as God. Any questions? And then Swamiji had walked out. Wally confessed, I don't know if I want to be initiated now. we have to worship him as God? He told, well, you are already doing that by accepting whatever he tells you. And he advised that they talk it over with Swamiji, of course, before initiation. So Wally went back to the temple and consulted Howard, and together they went up to Swamiji's apartment. Does what you told us this morning, Howard asked, mean we are supposed to accept the spiritual master as God? Swamiji replied, that means he is due the same respect as God, being God's representative. Therefore, he is as good as God because he can deliver God to the sincere disciple. Is that clear? It was clear. Prabhupada made it clear very, very easily. So, Prabhupada did not intend to convey that spiritual master is God. They could not differentiate between the statements spiritual master is God or spiritual master should be worshipped as God. So Lord Krishna also explains in Bhagavad Gita, Acharya Mam Vijaniyam. Acharya or spiritual master should be considered Mam Vijaniyam as myself only. Why? Just like Srila Prabhupada explains, post office is there. You put a letter in the post office to any person sitting over there, and they would send the letter to the destination. And a huge building is there, and so many things are happening. But you have a letter box also. Of course, now we don't use it, but we would have had experience of letter box. That red box is there. You won't find any people sitting inside. No mechanism happening inside. But you put the letter, it will perform the same function. So one should treat that letter box as a post office only. There is no difference. In a similar fashion, but letter box is not post office, but it behaves like post office. Same function will happen with your letter. So spiritual master, Lord Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Mam Vijaniyam should be considered as myself only. Navamanyeta Karichit, he is my representative. We cannot see Krishna is all spiritual. So Krishna sends his representative so that externally Krishna is there in the heart. And those who are spiritually advanced can take direct instructions, but we who are conditioned in bodily concept, we need external instructions. So the spiritual master is considered incarnation of Krishna, form of Krishna, a living entity who simply repeats the exact same thing what Krishna wishes to convey. So he should be taken just as God is speaking, and he should be given the same respect as what we give to God. This is the way spiritual master should be treated. So thus it was very, very clear, and they were glad their hearts were pacified. No, Swamiji still stands by his teachings. He is not telling I am the origin of the entire universe, but the same respect should be given because he is representative of God. Most of the prospective initiates spent several hours that day stringing their shiny red wooden beads. So they were making their beads, pushing one and then putting a knot, again pushing another, putting another knot. Swamiji had said that devotees in India chanted 64 rounds of beads a day. Saying the Hare Krishna mantra once on each of the 108 beads constituted one round. His spiritual master had said that anyone who didn't chant 64 rounds a day was fallen. At first, some of the boys thought that they would also have to chant 64 rounds, and they became perplexed. They were thinking, oh, in India, a spiritual master has told many devotees are already chanting 64, and he tells one who does not chant 64 is fallen. Do we also have to do 64 rounds? The bead stringing, chanting, reading, and dozing went on until 11 at night, when everyone was invited up to Swamiji's room. So this is Janmashtami, and because they have to anyway stay up till midnight, they were stringing the beads and doing everything. Then everyone was invited up to Swamiji's room. As they filed through the courtyard, they sensed an unusual calm in the atmosphere. The Houston street just over the wall was quiet. There was no moon. As his followers sat on the floor, contentedly eating prasadam from paper plates, Swamiji sat among them telling stories about the birth of Lord Krishna. Krishna had appeared on this evening 5,000 years ago. He was born, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, in the prison of King Kansa at midnight, and his father Vasudeva immediately took him to Vrindavan, where he was raised as son of Nand Maharaj, a cowherd man. Swamiji also spoke of the necessity of purification for spiritual advancement. He told, it is not enough merely to chant holy words. Now Swamiji was giving another very important instruction which a disciple is supposed to follow strictly after initiation. One is chanting, but merely chanting the names is not enough. It is not enough merely to chant holy words, one must be pure inside and out. Chanting in purity brings spiritual advancement. The living entity becomes impure because he wants to enjoy material pleasure. But the impure can become pure by following Krishna, by doing all works for Krishna. Beginners in Krishna consciousness have a tendency to relax their efforts in a short time. But to advance spiritually, you must resist this temptation and continually increase your efforts and devotion. So this purity is very important, and this purity is followed by following four regulative principles. So Swamiji did not tell directly, but he told indirectly that you have to keep yourself pure. He will reveal later the principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. These activities, if done, if a person breaks these regulative principles, then lust and greed, which are the impurities of our body, because of which we feel I am this body and birth and death continues, it increases unlimitedly in the heart. So these four principles are very important to be followed by every disciple. For anybody who at least wants any kind of happiness in this material world, those who break the four regulative principles, they cannot be happy. Their minds will always be disturbed. They will be in anxiety. So Prabhupada told it is very important to have cleanliness, internal and external. So if at all a person is not even able to follow the four regulative principles, simply he has to engage more and more in the service of Krishna, in chanting Krishna's name, and then strength will come to follow four principles. But only when four regulative principles are followed very strictly, and along with that attentive offenseless chanting is done, does a disciple make very rapid advancement in life. And Swamiji also explained the natural tendency of disciples. So when we are harassed by the material disturbances and we pick up the spiritual life, we get relief and we are very enthusiastic. So many people, they take to it and very quickly they increase their rounds. They become very regular in chanting, reading sadhana. They attend all the meetings. They start doing morning program, start getting up in the Brahmurta, 16 rounds, distributing books. But then the enthusiasm doesn't last for most of them. And just like now also, many people, they started in the first session. There were many, now it has come down and further, it is natural. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye. Out of thousands of people, one endeavors for perfection. Out of thousands or millions who endeavor, one becomes perfect. Out of millions of such perfect person, one is able to understand Krishna. So it is very rare. People keep on getting filtered. So just what initial enthusiasm we have, there is a tendency, because when we follow, mind becomes little stable, cool. Then we relax our efforts. And then we fall down again in the nescience. So we should be determined not to relax, not to become complacent, but keep on increasing our efforts for advancement in Krishna consciousness. So perseverance, determination is important. We feel like or we don't feel like, we should stick to the rules and regulations. Not that I am not getting pleasure. No, Krishna is getting pleasure. So I should very strictly follow the rules and regulations. This is what Swamiji explained to the prospective disciples. Michael Grant. I first heard about the initiation just one day before it was to take place. I had been busy with my music and hadn't been attending. I was walking down 2nd Avenue with one of the prospective initiates. And he mentioned to me that there was going to be something called initiation ceremony. I asked what it was about, and he said, all I know is it means you accept the spiritual master as God. This was a big surprise to me and I hardly knew how to take it, but I didn't take it completely seriously. And the way it was mentioned to me in such an offhand way made it seem not very important. He asked me casually whether I was going to be involved, And I also, being very casual about it, said, well, I think I will. Why not? I'll give it a try. Jan, Mike's girlfriend, didn't think she would make an obedient disciple, and initiation sounded frightening. She liked the Swami, especially cooking with him. But it was Mike who convinced her, his girlfriend. He was going, so she should come with him. Carl Higgins knew something about initiation from his readings in Eastern philosophy, and he more than others knew what a serious commitment it was, because he knew Eastern philosophy. Diksha means it is very serious commitment. He was surprised to hear that Swamiji was offering initiation, and he was cautious about entering into it. He knew that initiation meant no illicit sex, intoxication, or meat eating, and initiated disciple would have new responsibilities for spreading the teachings to others. Carl was already feeling less involved since Swami had moved to Second Avenue. He was living close to Baudi. But he decided to attend the initiation anyway. So, like this, various disciples, some of them were not at all aware, some of them were little aware, some of them were very aware and they were cautious. It's a serious commitment. So, like this, it was a bunch of various people having various connotations about initiation. And some of them were not present. Keith was in the hospital, who was the senior most. Bruce had been attending only for a week or two, and it was too soon. Chuck was on a week's vacation from the regulated spiritual life at the temple, so he didn't know about the initiation. So, on initiation, you are supposed to shave your head and follow other regular things, change your dress. But here, no one was asked to shave his head or even cut his hair or change his dress. No one offered Swamiji the traditional Guru Dakshina, the donation a disciple is supposed to offer as a gesture of his great obligation to his master. Hardly anyone even relieved him of his chores. So Swamiji himself had to do most of the cooking and other preparations for the initiation. So Guru is cooking for the disciple. They didn't even have the sense, I should help. He was perfectly aware of the mentality of his boys, and he didn't try to force anything upon anyone. Some of the initiates didn't know until after the initiation, when they had inquired that the four rules, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and no gambling, were mandatory for our disciples. Swamiji's reply then was, I am very glad that you are finally asking me that. It was to be a live Vedic sacrifice with a ceremonial fire right there in the front room of Swamiji's apartment. In the center of the room was a sacrificial arena, a platform of bricks, 4 inches high and 2 feet square, covered with a mound of dirt. The dirt was from the courtyard and the bricks were from a nearby gutted building. Around the mound were 11 bananas, clarified butter, sesame seeds, whole barley grains, 5 colored of powdered dyes, and a supply of kindling. The 11 initiates took up most of the remaining space in the front room as they sat on the floor knee to knee around the sacrificial arena. So it was a very unique thing from them, yet they are going to happen. For everyone except the Swami, this was all new and strange, and every step of the ceremony took place under his direction. When some of the boys had made a mess of trying to apply Vaishnava tilak to their foreheads, Swamiji had patiently guided his finger up their foreheads, making a neat, narrow V. He sat before the mound of earth, looking out at his congregation. They appeared not much different from any other group of young hippies from the Lower East Side, who might have assembled at any number of happenings, spiritual, cultural, musical, or whatever. Some were just checking out a new scene. Some were deeply devoted to the Swami, but everyone was curious. He had requested them to chant the Hare Krishna mantra softly throughout the ceremony. So this is what we are supposed to do. Not just few rounds of 16 rounds, but throughout the day. This is very important practice which we miss actually. So Prabhupada would tell Hare Krishna movement is based on the foundation of constantly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra at every moment. This practice is required. And when a person is constantly able to chant Hare Krishna mantra throughout the day, they are considered to be elevated to second platform. And our aim is to reach the third, the ultimate platform, that is called Uttamadhikari. But second platform also is, it's mandatory that we should be able to chant throughout the day. So at least on that day, Prabhupada requested in the ceremony at least continuously keep on chanting softly Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And chanting had now become a continual drone, accompanying his mysterious movements as head priest of the Vedic rite. He began by lighting a dozen sticks of incense. Then he performed purification with water. Taking a spoon in his left hand, he put 3 drops of water from a goblet into his right hand, and he sipped the water. He repeated the procedure 3 times. The fourth time he did not sip but flicked the water onto the floor behind him. He then passed the spoon and goblet around for the initiates who tried to copy what they had seen. When some of them placed the water in the wrong hand or sipped the wrong way, Swamiji patiently corrected them. So this is called Achman. Achman means purification. So 4 mantras have to be chanted. Om Keshavaya Namah, Narayana Namah, Madhavaya Namah, and Govindaya Namah. So this serves the purpose of taking baths also. So when it is not possible to take bath, just like we have pilgrimages, we have to move fast, or it's not the right time, the right place, it could be dangerous. So we simply do this achman, and that is considered as good as taking dip in the lake or the river. But please do not skip your bath and start doing simply achman tomorrow onwards. So bath is essential, but apart from that, we are going to start any ceremony, Vedic rite or deity worship. Achman is important because unless we are pure, we cannot approach Krishna or the Vedic rites which are meant for satisfaction of Krishna in an impure state. So this achmana purifies a person, sipping of water and chanting of mantras. And this is very effective. Then Prabhupada told this mantra which everyone is supposed to chant after achman. And he had them repeat one word at a time, Vedic mantra of purification. Om apavitraha pavitro va sarvavastham gato piva yasmarit pundari kashtam sabhayabhyantar shuchi Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. The initiates tried falteringly to follow his pronunciation of the words, which they had never heard before. Then he gave the translation, unpurified or purified. Or even having passed through all situations, one who remembers the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead is cleansed within and without. So it is the remembrance of Krishna which is the ultimate purifying factor. 3 times he repeated the sipping of water, the drone of the Hare Krishna mantra filling the room as the goblet passed from initiate to initiate and back again to him. And 3 times he led the chanting of the mantra, Om Pavitra, the same mantra. Then he raised a hand, and as the buzzing of the chanting trailed off into silence, he began his lecture. After the lecture, Swamiji asked the devotees one by one to hand him their beads, and he began chanting on them. So spiritual master, first this is the procedure, he chants on the beads. On every bead, 108 times spiritual master will chant, and this way he spiritualizes the beads and then hands it to the disciple, and the disciple is supposed to chant on those beads given by the spiritual master. So in this way, because 11 disciples were present, so Prabhupada had to chant 11 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It took over an hour for Srila Prabhupada to chant, and everybody else also was constantly chanting with Prabhupada. And then their beads were being given to them. And when the bead would be handed over to disciple, he would announce the initiate's spiritual name. So another very significant process of Diksha is that disciple is given new name, and that is spiritual one. The first name is Krishna's or devotee's name, followed by Das. Das means servant. So disease of material world is we want to become boss of the boss, and if there is a chance, any examination, we would like to become God. But in spiritual life, we go the other way around. We become servant of the servant. Kingdom of God is meant for meek and humble. In spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, everybody is trying to become servant of the other living entity. They think everybody is great, I am unqualified. So this is the mode of spiritual life. So thus the name is given Krishna or devotee's name, prefix, suffixes, Das. And then after receiving the name, disciple would take back the beads and bow to the floor and recite Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. This is the pranam mantra of Srila Prabhupada. So they would offer respects to the spiritual master. Thank you very much, offering their gratitude for accepting me, your disciple. Then after giving the beads, Srila Prabhupada gave the next thing, and those are the neck beads. These are also given at the time of initiation. So what are these neck beads? We are supposed to wear at least 2 rounds, standard is 3 rounds after initiation. So neck bead means Prabhupada told just like a dog's collar is there, If any dog is having a collar, it means he has got a master. In a similar fashion, wearing tulsi beads around your neck means Krishna is your master now, and you agree to submit to Krishna. So when Yamdoots, by chance somebody commits some mistake, they come to take the sinful living entity, they will tell you it is Krishna's dog. Very dangerous. We should not even approach. Otherwise, we'll be killed by Krishna. So Yamdutas don't even. Otherwise, it's very, very dangerous situation. Once Prabhupada got a disciple without neck beads, he saw him. So Prabhupada immediately told, immediately wear your neck beads. If you know how dangerous it is to remain in this world without wearing neck beads, you will start shaking in your boots. So there are so many forces, so many energies, calamities waiting for us, and neck beads save us from them. So thus it is told in the scriptures, at all times we should wear neck beads around them. After Wali received his beads and his new name Umapati, he returned to his place beside Howard and said, "That was wonderful. Getting your beads is wonderful." In turn, each initiate received his beads and his spiritual name. Howard became Hayagriva, Wali became Umapati, Bill became Ravindra Swarup, Karl became Karalapati, James became Jagannath, Mike became Mukunda, Jan, the only woman devotee, became Janaki, Roy became Rayaram, and Stanley became Striyadhish. Another Stanley, a Brooklyn boy with a job, and Janice, a college student from Montreal, both of whom had rather peripheral relationships with Swami, appeared that night and took initiation with the rest, receiving the names Satyavrata and Janardhan. Then Swamiji began the fire sacrifice by sprinkling the colored dyes across the mound of earth before him. With fixed attention, his congregation watched each mysterious move as he picked up the twigs and wooden splinters, dipped them into clarified butter, lit them in a candle of flame, built a small fire in the center of the mound. He mixed sesame seeds, barley, and clarified butter in a bowl and then passed the mixture around. Each new disciple took a handful of the mixture to offer it into the fire. He then began to recite Sanskrit prayers, asking everyone to repeat them, each prayer ending with the responsive chant of the word Swaha 3 times. And with Swaha, the initiates would toss some of the sesame barley mixture into the fire. Swamiji kept pouring butter, piling up wood, and chanting more prayers until the mound was blazing. The prayers kept coming, and the butter kept pouring, and the fire got larger, and the room got hotter. After 15 or 20 minutes, Swamiji asked each of the initiates to place a banana in the fire. And that lowered down the fire, but then there was so much of smoke. And some of them, they started suffocating. Other people who were just participating, they wanted to move in the front room out of that place, and they wanted to open the window. But Prabhupada told, no, don't open the window. This kind of smoke does not disturb. This smoke is very good. And Prabhupada didn't want fire brigade to come in because so much of smoke was there. So he told, just keep the window shut. But it was, the eyes were watery. It was so difficult for most of them who were not having the experience of participating in any such yajna. But this is how the very strange, unusual ceremony, first time they had been witnessing, the initiation ceremony, got over. Swamiji was happy. He arranged that prasadam to be distributed to all the devotees and guests. The fire, the prayers, the vows, and everyone chanting Hare Krishna had all created an auspicious atmosphere. Things were going forward. Now there were initiated devotees in the Western world. Finally, most of the disciples went home to their apartments, leaving their spiritual master to clean up after the initiation ceremony. So the disciples are there. First of all, Prabhupada has cooked for them. They did not help. They were sitting there, and after initiation, they carried on, leaving spiritual master to clean up the place. So how Srila Prabhupada was so much tolerant, an old man, a pure devotee of Krishna, whom even Brahma or Indra, exalted devotees, they also are expected to respect. And such a person is cleaning the place, cooking for them, and doing everything on his own, single-handedly. 3 days later, Swamiji performed his first marriage between 2 disciples, Mukund and Janaki, with a similar ceremony. He was satisfied. He was introducing some of the major elements of his Krishna consciousness mission. He had initiated disciples and he had married them. He had feasted the public with Krishna Prasadam. If I had the means, he told his followers, I could hold a major festival like this every day. On Radhashtami, the appearance day of Srimati Radharani, Lord Krishna's eternal consort, which happened soon after Janmashtami, Prabhupada held his second initiation. Keith became Kirtanananda, Steve became Satswarupa, Bruce became Brahmananda, and Chuck became Achyutananda. So, in this way, the first generation of Hare Krishna devotees were born in New York, in the United States of America. So, this was a historical moment in Vedic culture, in devotional service, and in America. Not anybody was even fortunate to hear the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But here, not just hearing, they had become bona fide students of a pure devotee of Krishna. And initiation is an extraordinary step in spiritual life. When a disciple takes initiation, all the past karmas are finished immediately. It is not possible to change one's happiness and distress in life. This is what people do not understand. People are working very hard. They think if I can fix my economy, if I can fix my relations, some people around me, my job, I would be happy. This is a great misconception. So this is what we are supposed to educate the society in. Not by finding any job, any business for ourselves, changing the government, raising some agitation or XYZ, we can solve the problems of life. The problems of life are highly individual in nature. God is not imperfect creator. Every living entity suffers the happiness or distress that is due to them basis the activities they have performed in this life and the previous ones. This is called the law of karma. As you act, so shall you reap. So a person cannot solve the problems which one is going to enter in one's life simply by permutation combination of some activities of this life. So the only solution if a person wants unalloyed happiness is he had to get rid of the sinful reactions which have been accumulated because of breaking the laws of nature in the past. And how that can be done? Lord Krishna gives the solution. So that is why we have to understand, realize this point and keep it there in the heart and remember always. And the solution is, there's the crux of Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna tells, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam shanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami masucha. You give up all concocted religions, duties which you have artificially made up in your mind. I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that. Keep on doing all those things, but the burning of heart will never stop. Anxieties, physical, mental, all these problems will continue. But Sarv dharman parityajya, when you give up everything, mam ekam, only unto me if you surrender, then aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami. I free you from all the sinful activities of the past. So as long as we keep on calculating, this will make me happy, this will make them happy, these calculations are never going to help us. What kind of people we are that we don't even surrender to God? A person doesn't surrender to government, he's a criminal. So one who doesn't surrender to God, he is also criminal. So that is why the crux of entire Bhagavad Gita is complete surrenderness to Krishna. In this way, all the sinful activities Krishna tells, I make you free from all of them. Mashucha, do not worry. So now, where do I surrender to Krishna now? That is why Krishna tells, Acharya mam vijaniyam. Acharya should be considered as myself only. He is my representative. So you surrender to Acharya. If you follow the police, the representative of government, you are following the king or government. And you are safe if you follow them. So in a similar fashion, Guru, spiritual master, is authority appointed by Krishna. So if one surrenders completely unto Guru, today onwards my life I will lead as per the direction of Guru, then immediately all the sinful activities are finished, and this is called initiation. This is where the happy life of the disciple starts. And when following the rules and regulations, so their power has been cut off, just like you switch off the fan. Now the karma, so we are completely being controlled by the laws of nature. We think I am free, but actually we are not free. Just like in dream, I think I am in control only to wake up and we realize, oh, it was happening automatically in the dream. Similarly, now we are helplessly being pushed and pulled in the laws of nature. We are more or less a witness in this body with little freedom. Human life, we have got some freedom, otherwise the animals, they are completely controlled. So that freedom should be used to surrender to Krishna. So at the time of initiation, that current is stopped, that helplessness which pushes the living entity into various activities. But still, because of past current, the fan is still rotating even though the switch is off. In a similar fashion, some bad habits, some forces of mind and body may try to agitate the heart, but then it's just a matter of time. Because we have surrendered to spiritual master, all those things are going to stop. It depends upon one's sincerity and the blessings of spiritual master. When does it completely stop? But this is where the spiritual life begins. Past karma is immediately finished. And then if a person keeps oneself pure, following the rules and regulations of spiritual master, then there is no more burden with. He goes back to Krishna, back to Godhead. So it was expected that we would discuss the formal inauguration of Hare Krishna movement, but this topic was very important, initiation ceremony. So maybe we might have to change the thumbnail to initiation ceremony. And I beg your pardon, Tompkins Square Park, which we were supposed to discuss today, we will discuss tomorrow. So thank you so much for hearing, and don't miss to hear how Hare Krishna movement formally got inaugurated, the Sankirtana got inaugurated in America. Now is the time for announcement of yesterday's winner. So yesterday, Miss Rajeshwari Rao was blessed by Krishna. Devotees got inspiration to award her this transcendental gift. She says that she will ardently spread information about this session and other sessions in all online platforms as far as possible for her. Thank you very much for this genuine effort. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that one who preaches this message to others, he is most dear to me, and nobody would be dearer to me than such a preacher. So preacher is most dear devotee to Krishna, and he gets special protection from Krishna. So thank you so much for expressing such nice sentiments. May Krishna bless you to do this. And only 20 people have written realization. So I request others also please write. Prabhupada was recommending all the disciples to write something every day. It does not matter 1 or 2 lines also. But if you write, then you are able to get clarity about the concepts and you develop realization. We don't just have to keep theory, we have to realize, assimilate this concept in our life. So I request, please write something, whatever you wish, and you can write in your personal diary also, that is good. But if you write in comments, it will be very nice content for us, because when people see the video tomorrow and then they go through the comments, it would be revision for them also. In this way, you'll be contributing. And another important thing is technically the video reaches to more people. So it is not like some physical book or pamphlet you can go and give to more people. Now, the more you like, the more you comment, the more it reaches. In this way, you will be also spreading Krishna consciousness. So I request all of you, please try to write your realizations in the comment section, not in the live chat, I repeat, in the comment section. And try to like it and try to share it so that we can take Prabhupada to many sincere jivas who are seeking shelter of Lord Krishna. Thank you so much for hearing. We'll meet tomorrow and discuss Tompkins Square Park. Hare Krishna.